Welcome to Rebecca Sounds Reveille. I am just excited about today's guest because this man, and who doesn't want to talk to the IRS man? Yeah, most of us avoid them, right? But today's guest we want to talk to because for 4 decades, this man has been the nation's leader in taxpayers' rights defense. Yes, you heard me right, defense. And he's been the IRS abuse prevention and cure man. Yes, you heard it right. He's regarded as one of the country's premier experts in IRS procedure. He's a man who's published 14 books and other published articles. You've got to check out his websites. He's got 2 that are massively amazing. You'll find out major information there. When I got to scrolling around in there, I was like amazed. And in fact, there's something I want to talk to him about today. There's 2 issues, really. One of them blew my mind. We're going to get to that. You're not going to believe it. But as amazing as all this sounds, he is just, his personality is absolutely intriguing. He will engage you. He will captivate you, and he's going to be very informative. What you're going to take away from today's show is going to be very useful to you. And that's what we do here is we provide information that makes your life happier, healthier, and you take away something that you can use today. So in a fast-paced environment, yes, he can provide the tools and information that you can use, but in the slow-paced environment, you're going to be able to read it, learn it, use it. Hey, what gets better than that? But I could go on, and we're going to talk more about his background and the information, but I want to get him on the show because I got lots to talk about, things you want to know. Welcome to the show, the man, the expert, Dan Pilla. Welcome.
Thank you, Rebecca, for having me. It's my pleasure to be here. How are you?
I'm really jazzed right now because
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, I got stuff to ask you. But first, let's hear your background. How did you get involved in all of this? Because you right now are, I mean, you've been on CBS, you are well known, you've been on talk shows, you are an expert in the field. People go to you and they want to talk to you. You're a consultant, you're it. So talk to me about how you got in this field.
Yeah, let me tell you, first of all, what we do specifically is we help individuals and small businesses with tax problems. All right, we don't do tax preparation. We do some remedial tax preparation, but our business is not primarily preparation of tax returns. We get into the act after the IRS calls the return into question. Then I deal specifically with individuals and small businesses in the areas of IRS abuse prevention and cure, problems resolution, and taxpayers' rights issues. So I help people put out the fires that are going on in their lives. Think of me as the ER trauma surgeon when it comes to the IRS, all right? When the patient comes to me, they've been in some kind of a crash, they might be bleeding to death, all right? So we got to stabilize the patient, stop the bleeding, and then put the pieces back together to get these people, you know, back home and into a normal life. And that's really the best way to describe what we do. And I got started in this business in the late 1970s as a result of problems my father had with the IRS. My father had a small business here in St. Paul, Minnesota, got behind in his employees withholding taxes, a very common problem that small businesses face all the time. And what happened in his situation is in 1974, when I was just a kid, the IRS shut his business down, they padlocked the doors, and they auctioned the equipment off for a couple cents on the dollar. And then later on, they turned their attention to the family home. In about 1978, 79, they tried to seize our family home. And I remember coming home one day, my mom was sitting at the kitchen table, and she's got this letter from the IRS in her hands. And she hands me the letter, and she says, "What do you think of this?" Well, I read it, and I said, "It looks like they're going to try to seize the house." And she said, "What do we do about that?" And of course, well, I had no idea what to do. I was 18 years old at the time. But what I did is I went over to the local law school law library. I started fumbling around in the Internal Revenue Code. And Rebecca, I didn't even know what I was looking for. I'm just fumbling around in the tax code. And I literally stumbled onto an area of the tax code that deals with taxpayers' rights issues and limits the power of the IRS. And I start reading in this code section, and I didn't get 6 pages into this and realized that the IRS was proceeding illegally to seize my parents' home. And so I did what any 18-year-old would do. I sued the IRS. I pasted together this Mickey Mouse lawsuit, just following the procedures and the books that I was reading in the library. I pasted together this lawsuit and I sued the IRS. And about 4 months later, I found myself in a federal courtroom in Minneapolis in front of a federal judge. The IRS had flown in an attorney from the Justice Department in Washington, D.C. to have my case thrown out. And I was asking the court to stop this house seizure. And I stood up in front of the judge and I said, Judge, this is real simple. The law says this, and the IRS is trying to do something different, and they shouldn't be able to get away with it. And I sat down, and my argument was about that polished. There really wasn't any more to it than what I just said. And then pretty soon this Justice Department lawyer stands up and he starts blathering things about code sections this and court cases that. And I had no idea what this guy was talking about. I'm not sure he did either. But he went on and on and on for 20 minutes. And when he was finished, the judge looked over at him and pointed at me and said, he's right. And he slammed the gavel. And I thought, well, this is simple. You know, I won the case. But here's the fascinating part of the story.
Oh my goodness.
The interesting part of the story is this: in between the time my father got in trouble with the IRS in the first place and the time that I found myself in that courtroom in Minneapolis, 1979, let's say, 78, 79, right in there, my dad got involved at the tax protester movement. Now, these are the folks that say that tax laws are unconstitutional and the IRS is illegal and it's...
Right.
You've heard all that stuff, right? Well, none of that stuff works. And the reason these people are in these arguments to begin with, for the most part, is because they have tax problems and they're seeking out of desperation some kind of relief for their tax problems. And that's how my dad got involved in it, just as a matter of desperation. Well, in the meantime, we're in the courtroom. My dad's tax protester buddies are in the courtroom. The courtroom is full of plus or minus 100 people. Most of them are my dad's tax protester buddies that have tax problems. So they saw the judge slam the gavel, right? So by the time I got home to my mother's house, they were lined up at the door. And they said,
my goodness, you got me teared up. Okay, go on.
They said, can you help me with my tax problem? And I said, sure, baby, I'm undefeated. Let's go here. And so it was an instant practice. And I approached every single problem the same way that I approached my mother's problem. Now understand, I stumbled on to the equation in my mother's case, but I applied that equation in these other cases that I worked on. And the equation was very simple. What is the IRS doing in this case? Number one. Number two, what does the law allow them to do? And I discovered very quickly that the IRS was cheating blind in half the cases. Half the time they were not following their own rules and regulations. And so I stopped the IRS from taking my mother's house, and using that simple principle, I've been stopping them ever since. And the 14 books that I've written on dealing with the IRS are all specifically focused on allowing the taxpayer, the uninformed Jane and Joe American citizen, to understand what their rights are when they're dealing with the IRS, to understand what the IRS's limitations are, so that you can fulfill your legal obligations, but do it without being run over by the IRS. And that's the premise I've followed for more than 40 years.
Yeah, you're not saying don't pay your debt. It's just don't get taken either.
Don't get run over in the process. You're exactly right. Listen, we all have a responsibility to pay our taxes
right
in full and on time. We all know that, all right? You got a legal duty to pay your taxes in full and on time. There's no question about that. You don't have a responsibility to pay taxes you don't owe, and you don't have a responsibility to roll over to the IRS when they make demands on you that are not legal or are not proper. And then I'll go a step farther and say, even if you're in a situation where you can't pay your taxes on time, listen, there's upwards of 30 million people out there right now, between 25 to 30 million, depending on how you count them, depending on what numbers the IRS is using on a given day. But let's just use the 25 million number. There's plus or minus 25 million people out there right now that got some kind of tax debt with the IRS. 60% of those people owe more than $25,000. So for a large segment of the population, it's a huge problem.
That's huge.
It is. And these people are facing enforcement problems. They're facing wage levies, bank levies, property seizures, tax liens. All right. Those folks are desperate for some kind of a solution to the problem. Now they owe the tax. They owe the tax, and they would tell you, Rebecca, I'd love to pay the tax, but I don't have the money. I don't have the capacity to pay. What do I do? And those people are entitled to relief as well. And in fact, my book, How to Get Tax Amnesty, is my leading book, my best-selling book ever, and has helped well over 250,000 people to deal with those kinds of problems. This is the book that shows you how to negotiate settlements with the IRS based on what you can pay, as opposed to being run over by them trying to drag out of you what you can't pay.
So two things real quick. First is you have a number of books, and if you buy them individually, it's like $25 a book, but I understand that you, from what I have read, you've got 3 different package deals that somebody can get, and it's affordable. You can get like 3 or 4 books for $50, and that's going to be a huge solution oriented issue for some. I mean, that's a good deal.
Yeah, there's no question about it, Rebecca. We offer certain book packages on my website, depending on what your situation is. And of course, we got the entire library available as well. And your viewers need to know that anytime you purchase a book off of my website, direct from my website, you also get a free consultation directly with me. So
okay,
if you want to talk about your particular problem, you buy a book off my site, which is taxhelponline.com. It's all one word, taxhelponline.com. Get that book off of my site. You'll talk to me directly about your situation.
I didn't realize that. Okay, so gone are the days where the IRS comes out and arrests you. It's just now that they will, freeze your bank account.
Yeah, we can't. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They just come in and seize your assets.
They can seize your assets. Now, we can't say that there is no risk of criminal prosecution, because the IRS does prosecute folks from time to time for criminal behavior. And in fact, just recently, and I find this to be delicious irony, just recently, a former United States tax court judge from Minnesota was convicted of tax fraud and conspiracy to defraud the United States, and she was sentenced to 34 months in jail right here in St. Paul, Minnesota, just a couple of weeks ago. So the IRS still does prosecute people.
Okay.
The way you get prosecuted, if you're looking for how to get prosecuted, the way that happens is if you deliberately and intentionally lie and falsify your tax returns and lie about your income. That's what gets you in trouble criminally. The vast majority of people, Rebecca, are never going to have a criminal problem with the IRS.
It's not because, okay, I owed this money and now they're coming after me. That was my point. Like, okay, I have this $20,000 debt and now they're coming to get me and take me away. I mean, because that's what a lot of people, I know when I was growing up, was the perception. If you didn't pay that money is on April 15th that you owe them, you're going to go to jail.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You're precisely correct. People think that the IRS is going to kick their door in at 3 in the morning and haul them off to some dank jail cell someplace because they didn't pay their taxes on April 15th, and that is not true. Those 25 million people that we were talking about, the vast, overwhelming majority of those people are not tax criminals. All right, being broke doesn't make you a tax criminal.
But
it makes you broke.
Perfect. I mean, that is a perfect point. And a lot of people don't really understand how it works. Like, so, for example, they'll take too many exemptions when it comes to working, and so that they'll be able to receive more money in their paycheck, of their take home. And at the end of the year, they don't realize that they've got to pay that money back because they took too many exemptions to begin with, which leads me to...
Yeah, that's a perfect example. I mean, people do this all the time. Listen, here's what happens. Life throws you a curveball, right? Life happens. Things go wrong. The world isn't perfect. We all know that. And so maybe that curveball is a failed marriage or a failed business, or maybe it's a catastrophic medical problem or a drug or alcohol problem, or maybe there's a natural disaster, fire, flood, hurricane, any of those kinds of things. Any kind of those problems can put people into a position where they literally have to make a choice between paying their taxes and feeding their families. And when people are faced with that choice, Rebecca, what are they going to do? They're going to feed the family. That's what's going to happen. And they're going to worry about the tax man later. Well, later eventually comes, obviously, and now the IRS is knocking on the door and they want the money. Now, just because you've been in that situation doesn't mean you're going to jail. And the fact of the matter is you are not going to jail. Right? So don't worry about going to jail, but you do have to worry about stepping up, getting current with the IRS, getting your delinquencies cured, and then getting into some negotiation to get the problem solved.
Right, exactly. Okay, so this was going to lead me to my next point in question to you, because I had recently, saw this investigation where there were people that had been claiming relatives that lived out of the country on their tax return, and they were getting a significant amount of money back.
Yep.
How is this possible? And, you know, is this really, really, truly happening? I mean, I saw this investigative thing, and they blocked out the IRS agent who exposed this, the whistleblower. But wow, I mean, talk to me about this.
Well, the short answer is it's happening, and the IRS knows it's happening, and the IRS has been trying to deal with it, but here's what's happening. Let me tell you exactly what's going on.
Okay.
What you're talking about is earned income tax fraud, all right?
Okay, yes.
We've all heard of the earned income tax credit, right? The earned income tax credit is a refundable credit that's available for low-income people that have families to support. Now, the more family members you have to support, the higher the credit is, the more money you get back from the IRS. Now, when I say it's a refundable credit, what that means is that this is not just a refund of money you paid in. It's a refund of money you didn't pay in. So it's welfare is what it is. That's administered by the Internal Revenue Service through the tax code. That's what the earned income credit is. It's a welfare payment administered by the IRS through the tax code. All right. So what happens is the lower the income you have and the more dependents you have, the higher the credit is up to a certain cap. And so what happens is people fabricate their dependents on the tax returns, and they submit tax returns that are false as to their income and false as to their dependents, knowing that the government is going to give them this free money in the form of the earned income tax credit.
This
and
just blows my mind.
Thing to police, no question about it.
I can't believe anybody would ever do this, and I can't believe the stacks of what I saw that people do this. Okay, so with that, I'm glad that
and let me go one step further with this now. In the last, it's been at least 10 years now, Rebecca, that the IRS has instituted a requirement for tax professionals who prepare tax returns that claim the earned income tax credit. Now there is a three-page form that the tax professional has to fill out called the Earned Income Tax Credit Due Diligence Form. All right, and so what happens is the tax pro has to go through this very detailed question and answer scenario with the client to make sure that the client is indeed eligible for this earned income tax credit.
I gotcha.
Okay, so the IRS is making the tax preparers the policemen when it comes to the earned income tax credit. And that's fine. Okay, you can make your argument that they should be doing that, and I'll grant you that for just a second. But that is no control over the individual who prepares and files his own tax return. He doesn't have to fill
I gotcha. I totally gotcha. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Okay, so we got a 1040 easy form, and somebody's just doing it. Yeah, I gotcha. Self-prepared all the way. Okay. Yep. So you have quite an extensive library on your site, and this is another burning question that it's not a question. It's just I would like you to expand upon this because this blew my mind. So it's the issue with the passport.
Well, yeah, and let's expand on that. A couple of years ago.
Whoa, you've got to talk about this.
All right, well, let's talk about it. A couple of years ago, Congress added a provision to the tax code that says if you are a quote unquote, seriously delinquent taxpayer, the IRS can pull your passport. All right, so now the question is, what is a seriously delinquent taxpayer? A seriously delinquent taxpayer, Rebecca, is anybody that owes more than $50,000 to the IRS and who has not ... All right, there are a number of exceptions that are in the law that will provide that they can't pull your passport if you've done these certain things. Okay. One thing is to make arrangements through an installment agreement to pay the IRS. So they can't pull your passport if you're into an installment agreement. They can't pull your passport if you're involved with what's called a collection due process appeal. I talk about the collection due process appeal right in my book, How to Get Tax Amnesty. Rebecca, it's probably the single most important right that taxpayers have when they're dealing with the IRS. It's a collection appeal process. It allows you to get your case in front of the appeals office and to make some kind of settlement arrangement with the IRS through that process. If you've got your case in a collection due process appeal, what we call a CDP appeal, they can't pull your passport. If you've got an offer in compromise that you've negotiated with the IRS, where you go in and say, look, guys, I owe you 50 grand, but I can't pay 50 grand. I can only pay, let's say, 5 or 10,000. That's a compromise deal. Then they can't pull your passport. If there's an innocent spouse claim that's pending, they can't pull your passport. If the IRS has made a decision in your case, Rebecca, that enforcement would cause a hardship, and they've closed your case down as what they call currently not collectible, then they can't pull your passport. All of these things I talk about in how to get tax amnesty. I show you every strategy that I talked about and exactly how to carry it out so you can accomplish two things. Number one, you don't lose your passport. And number two, you ultimately resolve your problem with the IRS so it's behind you and not hanging over your head anymore.
Okay, so really, all in all, okay, and I just touched on just a couple of things here that, you know, to me were pretty interesting. The passport thing was one. I haven't used my passport for a long time, but hey, I never would have connected either of those things.
You never
right?
know. You don't want to have your passport taken, for sure.
Right. And not that I owe anything, but I'm just, you know, I would have never connected this.
Sure, sure.
So my thought here is that there's a lot of things in life that you would never really sort of connect things. And what you have done, Dan, is you have taken a lot of the unknowns and placed it in a very good, easy way of being able to say, hey, if you're ever in a jam for any reason, these are the steps to take, and look how simplified it is. And this is what is really neat about what you've got going, because you've got a library of things that you can just kind of peruse around on your website. You've got books that are step-by-step how-to, very easy. And not only that, with what you just shared today, I didn't even realize with all the research that I did that you also get a consultation just for getting a book. I'm pretty impressed with what you've got going on. You're very well known. You've been on a lot of radio and TV broadcast. Your expertise in this field is superb, and I'm really thankful to have you on the show today. Please tell me what your top 3 books are, and the top book that you want our viewers to really get their hands on today.
Well, there's the 3 top books, and I'll just show them to your viewers as we go. This one is called The IRS Problem Solver. All right. Okay. This book was ranked by the Wall Street Journal as the #1 tax book in America. If you don't have a problem with the IRS and you want to keep it that way, you want to get the IRS Problem Solver book because it shows you how to stay out of trouble with the IRS. This book deals with the most basic kinds of problems that people have: computer notices, penalty assessments, those kinds of things, the basic problems, and it shows you how to deal with them. So this book shows you how to take a small problem and keep it from growing into a big one. It's called The IRS Problem Solver. The next book is called, and this is my most recent book, is called How to Win Your Tax Audit, which really could be titled How to Avoid Your Tax Audit in the First Place, because I spend a great deal of time in this book dealing with audit avoidance strategies. And then I take the audit process, Rebecca, and I break it down step by step by step so you understand every aspect of what goes on in a tax audit. And when you're done with your tax audit, if you've read this book, when you're done with your tax audit, you will come out of the audit with your money in your pocket where it belongs. The IRS is not going to get more money from you than you owe. So this would be the book, How to Win Your Tax Audit. And my magnum opus, if I can call it that, is the book that I mentioned a minute ago, How to Get Tax Amnesty. This book was originally released in 1992. The book has gone through 9 different revisions. So what you're looking at is the 9th edition of this book. The last time I rewrote it was just a couple of years ago, and it was rewritten from cover to cover. I went through this book one sentence at a time and rewrote the entire thing, completely updated, completely revised, all of the new programs, all of the new strategies for negotiating with the IRS. If you've got a tax debt problem that you owe and can't pay, if you're dealing with wage levies and bank levies, if the IRS has got tax liens on your property, if they're threatening seizure of assets, this is the book you need. How to Get Tax Amnesty has helped over 150,000 people to negotiate with the IRS. It continues to help people today, and it is the most comprehensive guide on tax negotiation strategies that's ever been written, Rebecca.
I
Ever.
love it. I love it. I'm really excited about this. I've got to tell you, oftentimes we really want to avoid any issues when it comes to this. We don't want to read about it. We don't want to think about it. We don't even want to deal with it. And when I got to your site, I just kept going, okay, I want to go more and more. Time was kind of getting away because I was thinking, wow, there's just,
Yeah,
what
see,
else is here? What else is
here's
here?
what we've done on the website. My website is not a tease, and what I mean by that is when you go to the website looking for information, you don't just get an infomercial. You get very
Right.
specific, detailed answers to questions. And in fact, we got one section on our site, taxhelponline.com, that's called the 20 most common problems that people have with the IRS and the solutions. And we walk you through specifically what you can do about this problem or that problem. And of course, we introduce you to our materials as well. But I've got a number of research reports on the site that are no charge, and a number of articles on the site that are no charge that we update all the time. Rebecca, I've written 14 books, as you said, but I've also written dozens of research reports and over 1,000 articles on the IRS of every description. So we've got a lot of that material on the website, and most of that is available there just to read through. As you say, you can breeze through. But then, of course, we offer the books as the solution to the problems, the ultimate solutions that'll guide you through what you need to do.
Yeah, it's a wower. I mean, it's incredible. Now you have a member site too, don't you?
We have a member site that's for tax professionals. Right?
Okay.
The member site is called Tax Freedom Institute. That's taxfreedominstitute.com. And that's my association of tax professionals. So if you're a tax attorney or an accountant or an enrolled agent, a person that's admitted to a practice before the IRS, then you will find a higher level of information at that site for continuing education, particularly in the area of IRS abuse prevention and cure and taxpayers' rights. That's for tax pros.
Okay, so let me just tell viewers, for those of you who thought, okay, this guy's an expert, let's move beyond that, because this guy is teaching.
Right.
This expert is teaching tax professionals how to do the things the correct way and to strategize the correct way in making sure that people are not being taken advantage of. And this is why we need to put our sights on Dan Pilla. So Dan, make sure that you share this information again with our viewers. I want it to come from you. You're the man. These are the things that our viewers really need to know, that they have a library of information of access at no charge to them, that the books that you have that are going to give them step-by-step help are accessible and affordable. And I want the information to come from you.
Yeah, and as you said, the books are affordable, Rebecca. No question about it. How to get tax amnesty, I think, sells for $59, and How to Win Your Tax Audit is like $29, and the IRS Problem Solver book is about $19. I mean, it's $24 maybe. I'm not even sure. But the fact of the matter is, they're affordable books for anybody, and they're specifically made that way so that people can get solutions to their problems. So if you go to my website, taxhelponline.com, that's all one word, no spaces of any kind, taxhelponline.com. You can access all of that information, plus the free material we do have on the website, which is extensive, as you mentioned, taxhelponline.com, and you purchase any book from me off the website, you buy any book of mine off of my website, you'll get a free consultation directly with me. Now, the books are out there in all kinds of places, and you can get them in a lot of different places, but you got to go to my website to get the free consultation. So that's taxhelponline.com.
Thank you so much for being a guest today. I really appreciate your time.
It's my
pleasure. For those
pleasure.
of you watching, thank you. For those of you watching, as you know, every show I want you to be able to take away something. There is a plethora here for you to take away. You'll probably need to go over this show several times to be able to get the information that was given here today. This is information that you need to know. I can't tell you how many times that I want to just turn my head away from finances because I just want to move forward and just keep going. But I'll tell you what, how often is it that we tend to lose something because we're not taking the time to pay attention to something? And the little time and attention that we pay and the little investment that we make now could really be advantageous for us in a big way later on. So this is something that I really recommend that you do. Take the time, go to the website, and you're going to see the information there is so advantageous to you that you're going to want to get more. I'm telling you, you're going to want to get more. So go to the website. If you want more information, you can definitely contact me direct too. I'll tell you what I learned, and I'm telling you, just the passport thing alone would just blew me away. And when we were off air, I asked Dan, I said, hey, how about this thing about the, people asking about the family members from other countries? I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. It's just like not a problem. You believe that? There's some people who are like, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about like it is. This is taxes. Yes. So if you have an issue, this is the gentleman to go to. He's the expert. He's the expert to other people who are experts as well, and giving them superior knowledge and training. So anything else that you can think of that you might want to ask, you can go directly to him. You can ask me and I will get the information for you as well. So thanks for tuning in today. I hope that you will have an opportunity to share this information with your friends, family, colleagues, others on social media. Get the information out there because we definitely don't want to be taken advantage of. We want to be able to grow physically, financially, mentally, spiritually, all of the above. Financially. Thanks for tuning in. You've been watching Rebecca Sounds Reveille on TLBTV.com, brought to you by the Liberty Beacon.